All right, so we will get started on today's webinar, and welcome back to the real effects of nuclear power, what the industry isn't telling us. In our first webinar back in April 2026, we spoke with 6 experts in the field. The Society of High Prairie Regional Environmental Action Committee is partnering with the Peace River Environmental Society to present this deeper dive into their topics of interest with each of our experts. We want to give viewers ideas about why anyone would object to nuclear power. One of the doctors in our first webinar, Dr. Dale DeWar, said, "You could be forgiven for thinking that nuclear power was the best thing ever, because that's all we're ever told. But there are so many horrific and very, very long-lasting effects that we are not told about." And we're grateful to Gerry Cheezie today, representing Dene Nation, for this deep dive into his topic, Dene Nation Objects to Nuclear Power, elaborating Dene Nation's long-standing experience with cumulative effects and how this informs their current objections. So thank you so much for joining us. Here's Wanda from Peace River Environment Society to introduce Gerry.
Thank you. Welcome, Gerry. Gerry was chief of the Tebati Denesulin First Nation. We practiced, but I did not get it right. The Fitz-Smith Indian Band and the Dene Nation Southern Vice Chief, variously. He is currently a co-chair for Keepers of the Water and represents Dene Nation on consultations with Energy Alberta about the proposed Peace River nuclear power project. Dene Nation issued a strongly worded letter in opposition to this project in November of 2025. We will have a look at the Dene Nation resolution and talk through your points about cumulative effects and generational changes. Thanks again so much for your time to do this, Gerry.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for hosting this.
Well, before we start and get into these important points, can you tell our viewers a little bit about your situation right now? People are aware there's multiple wildfires right now in Northwest Territories, and we just want to make sure that you're safe and that nobody is concerned when you're sitting on the phone with us for an hour here for the webinar. Can you tell us about the situation right now, Gerry?
Well, for the last 2 weeks, Yellowknife has been hosting the evacuees from Fort Simpson. They just went home 2 days ago, so they went back to their community. That fire is not considered to be a danger to the community, so that's a plus for all those people because they're really worried and concerned about their homes and their property. Currently, in the Northwest Territories, there's 245 fires that are happening right now. So those are all not all of them are being fought. The ones that are being fought are close to communities and other essential properties, I guess, that need to be protected, such as transmission transmission lines and transmission stations, like that nature. For last weekend, it was really smoky in Yellowknife. Today, it's cleared up quite a bit, but you can tell it's smoky when you see the sun. It's just a red ball of that you see, not yellow as normally. So there's still a lot of activity going on in the forest fire activity around all of our communities.
Oh gosh, well, I just hope you can stay safe and get some rain, get a lot of rain, hopefully. Yeah, it's hard times with climate change for sure. But we know that nuclear is not the solution. Takes way too long to build and too expensive at that. Never mind the generations worth of pollution. Um, Gerry, when we looked at the Dene resolution together, uh, there's a bunch of points on there that I think our viewers would be really interested to learn more about, to further learn more about. Um, and so it was moved by Chief Lorraine McDonald of Tebathi Denisovan Nation, and it was a unanimous motion. Um, and some of the whereases are super important, and I'm not sure that all of our listeners might understand what they mean. So, can you take us through your wording of what this whereas means? Whereas since time immemorial, the Dene people have lived according to Dene law, which teaches that water is alive, sacred, and must be respected, protected, and passed on clean to future generations. What can you tell us about that statement?
Well, that's basically Dene law that you treat the environment, nature, as you would treat your fellow human being. We know that we live in harmony with nature. Uh, we rely on water, all the wildlife, the fish, the birds for our survival, and it has protected us for generations. And we know if we look after it, it'll continue to uh, protect our people into the future. So we always put that whereas in our resolutions because uh, it has to be said that we do live by Dene law.
Thank you. Yeah, super important. And the next whereas is super important too. Dene elders teach that humans carry a sacred responsibility to care for the land and waters. What can you tell us about that? Whereas,
That's another example of Dene law in regards to how you look after the environment. It's really important to our people because they rely on the land for food, for spiritual guidance, and it's everybody's responsibility to look after the land and the water, not to leave garbage on the land, not to throw garbage into the water. Uh, it's a responsibility of every person traveling on the land and on the water to make sure that they treat it with respect.
right, and that would include non-Indigenous people too, because of treaty, we're
Exactly,
sharing the
exactly,
land.
exactly.
We need to share the sacred responsibility to care for the land and waters. Okay, on to the next one. This is super important one too. Whereas that harm to water is harm to the people, the animals, and the spirit of the land. What can you tell us about that one?
Again, when we speak about water and we speak about land, it's crucial to our way of life that we always respect uh, the spirit because we look at water as a living thing, and that as a living thing, you've got to give it respect. And one of the ways we do that is there are certain places on the rivers that we travel that are sacred, and you would have to make an offering in order to pass by through that section of a river. So that respects the spirit of the water. And we try to teach our young people those things because it's not taught in school, in the education system. We have to teach them uh, of, as we actually travel and do these things. So any harm to water is harm to our people.
And that's a very basic understanding that I think Western science is finally starting to catch up with. Any harm to water is harm to all the things that depend on water. It makes me think of that research by the Japanese scientist where he put words onto jars of water and froze them, and the words affected them. It was like they understood, the water understood. It's amazing. There's so many ways and places where Western science has not yet caught up with Indigenous knowledge, and we hope that it can catch up very soon. Forestry is another place. Okay, this is whereas about the interconnectedness of the waters. At our webinar yesterday, Dr. Gordon Edwards mentioned the Peace Athabasca Delta. So that Peace River that's mentioned in this whereas and the Athabasca River flow up to the Peace Athabasca Delta. And as we mentioned yesterday, it's the largest freshwater delta in the world. Can you confirm that, Gerry?
Yes, I was born in the community of Fort Chippewa on the shores of Lake Athabasca. So I've had experience traveling in the Peace Athabasca Delta. Uh, it's an oasis of plant life, animal life, bird and fish that's been happening there for generations. Our people go there to harvest birds because it's a natural flyway from birds migrating to the north to nest and then going back south. They also stop there. So every fall time, every spring, birds go through there. The area is prime for fur-bearing animals such as uh, muskrats, beavers. Uh, they also sustain a huge uh, animals such as bison and moose and caribou. And it's a prime area for the Dene that live in that area uh, for their livelihood. And so the Peace and the Athabasca flow north into the Slave River, which flows into the Mackenzie River Basin. So anything that's put in the water in Alberta ends up in the water that we live on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a crucial point. Like the area that is proposed for the Peace River nuclear power project um, is right on the Peace River, so that's the water that they would be using. That's the water that they would be emitting their tritium into, um, and that's the water that would flow, like you say, up to the Peace Athabasca Delta, and then further on up to your area of the Northwest Territories. So, yeah, that is a very strong statement um, about the responsibility to safeguard that water. And I see this as this statement from Dene Nation opposes the treat and release of oil sands mine water into the Athabasca, and as well as the proposed nuclear project, reactor project on the Peace River. And this whereas about the Peace River nuclear project, it says here, it conflicts with Dene teachings that warn against creating dangers that will burden future generations with risks they did not consent to. What can you tell us about that? That's a very important and specific whereas about the future generations. What can you tell us about Dene understanding and Dene law about protecting future generations?
Well, we've had a history uh, that has not been very kind to our people. In 1968, there was a dam put on the Peace River in northern BC, which is called the Bennett Dam. We were never consulted. We were never told that this dam was being built. And the impacts of that decision is long range because we're still feeling the impacts of it today. It has lowered the water table on the Peace, which lowers the water on the Slavey and into the Mackenzie River Basin. So the impacts are great because it stopped our people from practicing their treaty right to live as they always did. It impacted the fish, the wildlife, the plants that people use for medicines. And so, beginning with that, and also in the 60s, the oil sands started to happen on the Athabasca River in Fort McMurray region. And that one had to do with cumulative effects of oil, tar sands oil development and tailings. So all of these things and cumulative effects in combination is what has really impacted our land and our waters and the ability of our people to continue to live off the land as their ancestors always did, and which was one of the promises made at the signing of the treaty. So when we talk about protection of water, we have a long history with dealing with the impacts of that, of development that happens outside of our boundaries. And because they have happened in the province of BC, in the province of Alberta, and the province of Saskatchewan, we have little say as to what happens when projects get approved and we are left out of the discussion. But we feel the impacts of that decision. And this is just another case of this happening again. It seems like industry and government do not pay attention to what has happened in the past, do proper environmental assessments, do proper consultation, and make the correct decision, which is to protect the water. Because without water, there is no survival of the human race or the planet.
For sure. Now, you mentioned decisions in BC, decisions in Alberta to do with the tar sands tailings. Those are definitely, I can see how they impact. And then there's generational decisions that took place from Saskatchewan with the uranium mining. Like that was a long time ago, but the effects are probably still being felt. Um, do you have any recollections of hearing about effects from the uranium mines? I know a lot of Dene people did work in those mines too and were
Yes,
impacted.
yes. In northern Saskatchewan, um, part of Lake Athabasca is in northern Saskatchewan. Communities of Fond du Lac, Black Lake, Stony Rapids, which are predominantly Chippewan Dene communities. A lot of them also live in the Uranium City area when it started to be developed in the 1940s and 50s. And and at that particular time, as mining has happened all over the Canada, there were regulations, but the regulations weren't enforced. And in this particular case with uranium mining, we're talking about radioactive material that wasn't properly stored. It was blown all over the landscape, and it's affecting people and animals and plants and birds that land in the waters and eat the plants. There's far-reaching environmental issues at play there. And when El Dorado pulled out of Uranium City, uh, they never really had a cleanup plan that looked at those things. So they just walked away from it and minimal minimal cleanup on the environment. So we're well aware of those activities, and I'm positive that it affected the water quality in Lake Athabasca as well.
Yeah. At yesterday's webinar, Dr. Edwards was sharing some terrible statistics about the miners, and like that was a long time ago, but yet they still knew, and they didn't do safety first back then. They were not involved in safety first procedures at all back then. Um, so the next thing that I was hoping to look at with you, Gerry, are those Darlington emissions, because that's an example of what we're going to be looking at if the proposed Peace River nuclear power um, project goes ahead. It's a little bit bigger than Darlington, so we might increase the emissions a little bit even. It's basically the same technology from what I understand, though the Monarch, although they're claiming they're technology neutral now, they might switch technologies on us, and we're not sure exactly what that means for Peace River. But should we have a look at those Darlington emissions together?
Certainly.
Okay.
Well, sorry, the screen went black, so I don't know what happened.
Oh, okay. Do you see the document now?
Oh
That
yeah,
I
yeah,
have shared?
I do
Okay,
now.
there it is. Sorry, you were starting to say something?
Um, I can't really speak too much about the Darlington information because I'm not familiar with it because
Sure.
of the fact that it's in Ontario.
Yeah.
But I can speak to um, what our concerns are with the Peace River nuclear reactor project
Yeah.
proposal.
Well, it all comes together because in the Dene statement about burdening future generations, this right here is what the burden is. So this is
Yeah,
from quarter 1 of last year, and these are the details about the amount of radionuclides. So these are radioactive elements that are released. This is allowable release into the environment. We got our tritium. We got our tritium oxide, our carbon 14, noble gases, iodine, particulates, and this is all by design. It's allowed to be released. So there's the burden for future generations.
exactly.
What
You know, the detonation's concern with nuclear energy development is around nuclear mining, nuclear power generation, transportation and storage of radioactive materials, long-term nuclear waste management, which all poses significant environmental and human health risks, which this Darlington report alludes to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is just this is their required reporting. They have to do it every quarter, showing how much they released to the environment. And I won't linger on there, but yeah, we sure appreciate Dene Nation's strong stand against that for Alberta. And here's another point that Dr. Edwards made yesterday. Darlington is releasing all that into the Great Lakes, like a huge water bodies. And the proposed Peace River nuclear power project would be releasing it into the Peace River, which is nowhere near as much water. So that, that's a huge concern in terms of cumulative effects as well. Um, it just doesn't seem very well thought out, and people are scared, really. Um, and
The,
that, go
the
ahead.
Dene Nation is not convinced that nuclear development in northern Alberta is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 dams on the Peace River on the BC side, which is generating all kinds of electricity. I don't know if that electricity is being used in Alberta. There also is a more environmental friendly way to generate electricity with natural gas turbines. And if electrical creation has to happen, they should look at that
Or
and
renewables.
not at nuclear development as the answer, because whatever research I've done on it, there's a huge cost to building these kinds of nuclear reactors. We don't know who is financing this and for how long and why. The potential for radioactive contamination of surface water and groundwater, impacts on fish, wildlife, which rely on for food, cumulative effects on ecosystems, risks to the health and well-being of our present and future generations is our primary concern, because the Dene, the Métis, the Inuvialuit of the NWT have relied on the Mackenzie River Basin for generations, and they're not moving anywhere. They're not going to be moving to Calgary and living in the foothills of the Rockies.
No.
If the Mackenzie River Basin is environmentally destroyed by nuclear or tar sands tailings, and we don't want our future generations to be faced with that cumulative impacts.
That's for sure. Yeah, now's the time that we have to stand up. I know REAC is preparing, well, I have prepared a statement for tomorrow's deadline on the major projects plans of our government. And it's really dangerous to fast track stuff when it's a bad idea in the first place. Like, why fast track it when it's going to cause all those cumulative effects and put our future generations at risk like this? So, yeah. Gerry, when we were talking about this webinar, we talked about the cumulative effects, and we also talked about some of your generational experiences. And can you tell us more about that, the way it used to be done and the way it's done these days?
Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted here. I got my granddaughter wandering around behind me here.
Nice.
What did you want me to speak to? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Well, it's kind of cute because it's about the generations, and there we have uh, your granddaughter in the background, and so obviously you're thinking of her when you're talking about future generations. But the question was in relation to your generational understandings and knowledge, because you've been around for a while and you've seen a lot of things. And we talked about how things used to be done and how they're done today, and what are your expectations for the future and how they should be done.
Well, I was born in Fort Chip in the 1950s, and I've lived in northern Alberta and the Northwest Territories my entire life. I graduated from high school in 1969-70. From that period of time to now, I've witnessed immense changes to our land and our waters. And again, it was done without our consultation. Everything was done by the province of Alberta, the province of BC, province of Saskatchewan, and the federal government of Canada. Decisions were made that would impact us for generations. And has impacted us. The impacts have come home to roost now. Our waters are at the lowest levels they've ever been in my lifetime. As a young boy, I traveled on the Slavey with my parents. Every summer when we got out of school, we spent 2 months on the land, learning how to survive, learning how to speak our language, learning how animals live, learning plant life for medicines, knowing where all the fishing holes were. And all this has changed now. A lot of our people still continue to pursue these traditional activities, but all of this has taken secondary position to economic development projects that benefit corporations more than they benefit our people. These impacts are cumulative impacts. They're not one thing, they're a combination of things. the quality of the water, the quality of the air, the destruction of our land, all impacts our ability to live on the land as our ancestors did. Our people continue to use the land in that way, and that's not going to change. When we go on the land, we haul water because we are afraid to drink the water from the rivers. So that's one major impact that we are experiencing now. The Mackenzie River Basin is a huge area. And this Mackenzie River Basin is in danger of being destroyed by cumulative effects from hydroelectric dams, pulp mills, nuclear development, tar sands, agricultural runoffs, etc. And once it enters the waters, people think that the problem has gone away. But all it's done is that it's pushed the problem to another location. And in this particular case, the waters that flow from the Peace and the Athabasca all flow into the Mackenzie River Basin and eventually into the Beaufort Sea and into the Arctic Ocean. So it's an international issue. The Mackenzie River Basin and the Mackenzie River Delta is one of the largest freshwater deltas in the world. And it's being heavily impacted. And this has all happened in the space of 70 years. And it seems like we have not learned from the mistakes of the past. We know that mining is a dirty business. There's history of mining in BC just within the last 10, 15 years. We have our own mining disaster that we were not aware of in Yellowknife. There was 2 gold mines operating within the city limits of Yellowknife, and that was why Yellowknife was created, based on gold mining. But nobody said anything about the process of extracting the gold from the ore. There was a process called roasting, and one of the byproducts of that was arsenic trioxide. When the gold was finally mined out of these 2 mines, there was 2 mines. One was Giant Mine and one was Con Mine. Giant Mine, we found out about a year after it closed down and the company went into bankruptcy and receivership and walked away from its environmental responsibilities, that there was 270 tons of arsenic trioxide stored in the underground mine shafts of Giant Mines. So we're sitting on top of a ticking time bomb here. The federal government and the Canadian taxpayer is paying for the continuous, forever and a day monitoring and maintenance of keeping that arsenic trioxide from escaping into the environment. The same scenarios is occurring with the oil sands tailings. The federal government and the oil and gas industry plan to change government policy and regulations to allow oil sands companies to treat and release tailings into the Athabasca, which flows north.
Uh, just to say, I think that's the provincial government. The federal government, I hope, hasn't weighed in on that crazy plan yet. That's the Alberta government that wants to do that. Here's
No,
hoping that.
no, that's not right. They're involved through ECCC.
Oh, they already
The
are.
federal minister Drabusin or Julie Drabusin,
Yeah.
they're aware of this, and they are in negotiations now to introduce a plan to do that.
Oh, no.
They say that they want to treat the tailings to an acceptable industrial standard. What that is, I don't know. And to me, an acceptable environmental standard is you should be able to drink it.
Well, if
If
it's
you
an
can't drink it,
acceptable,
why are you willing to discharge it into the river?
if it's an acceptable industrial standard, they should be able to use it in their own processes. They are constantly taking
Exactly.
water from the river.
Exactly.
They don't need to release it if it's an acceptable industrial standard.
And with all
Oh,
that's going on in Canada with these nation building projects, the province of Alberta looks at that with glee in their hearts because they say that this gives them the green light to do more production in the oil sands, which means more production of tailings, of CO2. So these are the things that I've seen happen in my lifetime. And these are not good scenarios. And because we're a small population in the NWT, there's 40 something thousand of us individuals that live here. Dene, Métis, Inuvialuit, and other that live in our communities really are small potatoes in this big game that is being played. And we are trying our level best to create awareness, to form alliances, to combat this. Because we're not going to sit back and continue being guinea pigs of forces outside of our boundaries. So we're going to continue to fight this uphill battle. That's why I'm speaking to you today, because awareness and education is a big important part of this.
yes, it is. And thanks for correcting me. I didn't realize the
Issue.
federal government was. Uh-oh, you froze for a second there. I was just saying thanks for correcting me. I didn't realize the federal government of Canada was already involved in this crazy idea to treat and release tailings because the industry draws water from the Athabasca River every day. They use lots of water. If they can treat that tailings water to industrial standard, they should be reusing it themselves and never mind release because, oh my goodness. And respect for Dene Nation for standing up to all of these things. We have a question here in the chat about this, and so I'll ask it now. If Gerry can tell us how much the Peace River nuclear proponents have talked and listened to Dene Nation, and if they have meaningfully addressed the problems. Has
Well,
that?
we first heard about this project through the media. Nobody's talked to us, although we're downstream from this activity. You would think that Energy Alberta would make contact with us. They made contact with us only after we reached out to them and saying we want information. We want to be consulted. We're a member of Treaty 8. We're a member of Treaty 11. And we have constitutionally protected rights under Section 35 and UNDRIP. Why aren't we being consulted? We're going to be impacted. So we've gone to one meeting in Peace River about a year ago where they said this was a site location meeting or something, and I was at that particular meeting, and I told them that the Dene Nation is vehemently opposed to nuclear development. There were people, some First Nation people there, there's some people from the Métis colonies there, and there was other people there as well. And a lot of people did a lot of listening, but nobody said anything. But I spoke up and told them in no uncertain terms that we oppose this. We said we don't believe that there's a need for nuclear energy in northern Alberta. And if they wanted to build it, why don't they build it outside of Calgary? And so they didn't have a say on that. And I know why they're building it in want to build it in Peace River. Because of the water, for one thing, they need. And that there's a small population there, and they could do an end run around them and get approval to do this project, which I don't think is necessary. Although some people would view it as a right thing to do because they could make money off it. And that's not our primary concern. Our primary concern is we don't want to live in the shadow of a nuclear reactor accident waiting to happen next year or 10 years down the road or 50 years down the road. We want to have no part of nuclear development. So again, like these are activities that are being done by the government of Alberta with no concern to the environment, no concern to our treaty rights, and no concern about the environment, to the water, to the air, and what's going to happen with future generations. Every time I drive from Yellowknife to Edmonton and I drive through northern Alberta, it's pretty pristine. It's a nice drive. And I see people farming, doing on the land activities, which we don't have an issue with. But once you start to propose projects that are of this magnitude, that there's so many unanswered questions, and yet the province of Alberta is okay with that. The
Not all
Northwest
of us,
Territories,
but the province, yeah.
the Northwest Territories spends most of its money in Alberta. Every time we buy a truck, we buy it somewhere in Alberta. Every time we fly to Edmonton, we stay in their hotels. We eat in their restaurants. We shop in their stores, in their malls. In every community, in high level, Manning, Peace River, every community that the road goes through, we stop to buy gas, food. So we're a partner. But when it comes to negotiating and seeking consent from us, they ignore us. And that's been the legacy that the province has left behind. And under this current UCP government, things have just gotten out of hand, and it's really chaos and anarchy that is happening here.
It's really something. I know both of our groups, Regional Environmental Action Committee and Peace River Environment Society, really stand behind Dene Nation and stand with you. We're not in agreement with any of this either, and we particularly admire your stance about the future generations when it comes to nuclear, because it will be a huge burden for them that they did not ask for. I'm just going to go back really quick to the Dene resolution where it talks about that, because, yeah, the proposed the Dene teachings warn against creating dangers that will burden future generations with risks they did not consent to. And that's exactly what this nuclear project does. So a big kudos to Dene Nation on that. And we see that also they're concerned about the data center. And yeah, none of this has advanced with any free, prior, informed consent. I'm shocked to learn that Energy Alberta did not reach out to Dene Nation until you guys asked for more information. That's the opposite of what the consultation is supposed to be. And thank you so much for stepping up and opposing in accordance with Dene law. And the guidance of the elders, this project. And any of the long-term harm on the land is contrary to Dene law and violates the treaty rights of Dene people and all of us, really, because it's just that. It's long-term harm. And that's exactly what radionuclides can do. So
Exactly.
when Energy Alberta did reach out to you guys, there was just that one meeting? They never responded to this document at all?
No.
Isn't that something? They just feel they have nothing to say, maybe, or they're just
Well,
going to try and wiggle around through the politics of, like you said, anarchy. It's very
Yeah.
anarchic here in Alberta right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, well, we see it all. We see it all in the news, like that Wonder Valley
Yeah.
data center by Kevin O'Leary getting a free pass from environmental assessment. Why would do you see provincial government do that? There's
That's
people in that
another one
area.
where
It affects it affects the water levels, the noise. It affects so many things. Yet there is no environmental assessment done.
But like I said in my comment, I think that they take advantage of people's apathy. People, one, are not informed, and two, Albertans are very apathetic. They don't get excited about, like, look at the teacher strike. What came out of the notwithstanding clause? Not much. So we don't get up in arms, and they take advantage of that. Like, the fact that people, Fox Creek one is being built as we speak. The concrete is being laid for the base, and my nephew is a part of the building is going to be one of those metal clad buildings, and they're just going to super insulate it. But Fox Creek, do they freaking know what they've signed up for? Do they know? They probably have no clue about the lights, about the noise, about the energy. The electricity is just going to go through the roof for those people. They have no clue what's coming. It is irresponsible, but they just take advantage of us. Those
and people
people,
don't really know what to do because,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's they're coming up with all these really crazy ideas to enrich their friends, basically,
Yeah.
and it's leaving the rest of us out of it. How much longer do we have before a general election here in Alberta? Another
2027,
year?
another year. Yeah.
One more year of this insanity.
But it could carry on because people don't know what's going on. And I also think that they are moving so quickly, like the nuclear. The federal government is trying to move this all along with this Build Canada. They're trying to move it all along so quickly that it's a done deal before people realize, oh my God, like the Peace River is tapped out for water already. What's going to go to the Delta? Like,
But fortunately, when it comes to nuclear, it's very, very slow. It's so slow.
true.
And they
That's
just made it slower by doing this technology neutral thing where that now they have to evaluate two different technologies before they can decide
good.
which technology to use for the Peace River nuclear.
Good.
It'll be decades to build it. And here's the thing, both about nuclear and gas. Um, they need fuel, whether it's radioactive fuel or gas that contributes to climate change. The only one that you can do it without any fuel is renewables and batteries. That's the only one where you can do energy production without a constant input of fuel. And so, that's the one I know both of our groups are promoting. Do you guys have any renewable energy projects
Oh,
up
yeah.
north yet, Gerry?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
We were just talking about renewable energy as an alternative because it doesn't require any fuel. The wind is free, the sun is free, it's there. Then you can catch it in batteries and use it when you want it. Do you know of any local renewable energy projects to where you're at?
Well, the only ones that communities have embraced is wind energy. Not wind energy, sorry, um solar energy.
Like rooftop
And
solar
so,
panels?
yeah, solar panels, because a lot of our communities are isolated communities. They
Mm-hmm.
use diesel generation to create electricity.
Yeah.
So, a lot of our communities have gone that direction. And
Using
a lot of our
solar.
communities are small, isolated communities, and a lot of these um, projects that would happen in mining are in sort of in the hinterland, so it's really difficult for corporations to develop because it takes a lot of money. So they tend to stay away.
But I've heard of a group called Indigenous Solar. That's their reason for being is to help remote communities transition away from diesel onto renewables so that they don't have to keep buying diesel all the time. Because once you make the initial investment with renewables, then you're set. You don't have to pay ongoing fuel costs and whatnot. So I'm
Yeah,
I'm I'm glad to hear that there is some rooftop solar going on and some other stuff like that. And yeah, we're a solutions-based group. We always want to know what the alternative and more environmentally friendly alternative is to whatever it is. If there's a problem with a facility, we want to come up with a solution, an alternative. And, that's what we figure in this case. If there is a need for electricity, we should put in more renewables and battery um, together so that the power can be stored until it's needed. But I see we're just about at time, and I want to thank you again, Gerry, and a big thank you to Dene Nation for standing strong against destructive projects, and where we have to protect the future and the future generations. Did you have any final closing words for us?
no, I want to thank you and your co-host there for allowing us to do this because part of my job is to create awareness and to form alliances and to reach out to people that are like-minded that understand the importance of the environment for future generations. and that we got to work together and we'll make a difference. History will show that we didn't just roll over and allow corporations to do whatever they want to our
Yes.
lives.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys said it, I just had to answer this phone call. The social license to operate. And I know that the federal government had put that was one of the things that they had in their Build Canada. And I just think we need to let them know that no, you don't have a social license to do this. People are not okay with you getting around all of these environmental protections. And those environmental protections were hard won by generations of people before us. And for them to just dismiss them or just, throw them out the window to fast track these projects. No. We won those rights, and we're not going to let you just go, like Gerry said, just go, sneak around them. No, we're not going to allow that on our watch.
Well said, Wanda. And thank you to Peace River Environment Society. Thank you to Dene Nation. And a huge thank you to Gerry Cheezie. We will get this up on our YouTube channel as soon as possible. Might have to do a little edits and whatnot, but we'll get it up there right away. And thanks again to all our viewers and yourselves.
Thank you, Gerry. Hope we stay in
touch. Thank you very much.
Okay, you bet.
Have a great day.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.